In today's video, we're going to talk about tips on what you should do to not be nervous on sales calls. And I've done a lot of sales training programs, right? And they're all about getting the money, be certain, be confident. But what happens if you've never done any sales calls before? What happens if it's unfamiliar territory to you? Then you're probably going to be a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious before you do your first ones, right? I know I certainly was. I had no sales background whatsoever. I did have a background in phone calling and speaking to clients and things like that. But in terms of sales and asking people for money and things like that, I had no experience. So I had to learn from scratch. I remember the very first call I did with a person. I was nervous beforehand. I was like, what's going to go wrong? Are they going to laugh me off the call? Are they going to get mad when I tell them the price? Am I going to remember what to say? Do I even know what I should be charging them? All these little anxious worries were going around my head. So in today's video, I'm going to help you deal with them. So tip number one, you have to have a sales script in front of you. I see so many different business owners, so many different entrepreneurs who go into a selling conversation, but they don't have any script in front of them. They don't have any guidance of what they should be saying. Even when they're advanced, they still need the guidance as well. So make sure you've got a script in front of you, because the worst thing which can shut down a sale is this awkward silence because you don't know what to say, right? You don't know what questions to ask next. So you should get a sales script in front of you. If you're watching my content, you've probably got some sort of sales script from some sort of smma community or online entrepreneur community. If you haven't, just Google one and at least learn that and have it in front of you. And when I say learn it, you need to be speaking out loud and going through it at least 20 times before a phone call. Once you do that, you will not be worried about what questions to ask next. You could be more focused on what they're saying than what's going on in your head. Like, what do I say next? How do I respond to this? It's much, much easier that way. I've been on sales calls with people and both ways, right? I've had people selling to me and I've been selling to them as well. And like, I can tell the people who are organized and have got some sort of script in front of them. And guess what? They are way more convincing, right? So that is one way to relieve your anxiety, is to have that sales script in front of you. Make sure you've rehearsed it and actually gone through it. Don't believe that you're just going to be able to wing it. Even if you typically wing other things, go with that hard work beats talent. Number two, everyone has seen those boiler room sales teams where they're phoning people and speaking really aggressively and trying to force sales down the customer's throat. Real sales isn't like that at all. In fact, it's actually the opposite. Real sales is about you speaking only 20% of the time, but the person who is buying from you speaking 80% of the time. And the reason why they're speaking way more than you is because you're asking them questions to determine if what you're selling is really a good fit for them. And over the course of the conversation, you ask enough questions like what they're currently doing at the moment, where they want to get to, what's holding them back, things like this. You ask enough of these questions and the conversation will naturally go in the direction of you being able to ask for the sale in the end. And you'll feel a lot more calm and collected about yourself because you are actually not doing the majority of the talking. You are doing the majority of the listening. You're just asking questions and letting them come up with the answers. Picture it like a doctor and patient relationship. A doctor doesn't just immediately prescribe medication. I mean, maybe some of them do, but they shouldn't, right? They should be asking what your symptoms are so they can prescribe an appropriate solution, right? Think of it like that. Tip number three, there is no shame in charging small first. I have said this before on this channel, but I came from quite a poor family and I didn't have much money growing up, right? So asking for very high ticket sales for me, it was almost impossible. When I did, I wasn't convincing enough. And before I did, I couldn't get the confidence up to naturally do that. And the reason why is because I'd never asked for that much money from people before. And they could tell that when I was asking for it. So there's absolutely no problem, if you're anything like me, to start with smaller prices first, something that you're comfortable with, even if they are getting a much better deal, because there's a lot of psychology around you asking for things which you don't actually feel you deserve. So you have to work your way up the ladder to make sure that you are asking for things that you feel you do deserve at the moment, even if it's a very, very small amount where you feel that they are getting a better end of the deal. Better to get the first client and get the ball rolled in, almost have it as like a test client, right? For a great price. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4, master the art of speaking slowly. When you're nervous and you're feeling a little bit anxious, people tend to spit information out very, very quickly. They're like, hey, how's it going? Are you okay today? And they maybe will interrupt people when they're replying to them. And it's just, that comes from like a place of nerves and anxiety. And if you do that, it just means that you've got to slow it down a little bit, right? Because it's, funnily enough, we speak at a fast rate because we believe the person opposite us isn't actually listening to us. So we feel like we need to get all the information in because we don't feel deserving of their time. But realistically, the slower you speak, the more the other person actually wants to listen, because they start listening intently. They can see that you're quite centered and present in yourself and that you're actually cool, calm and collected, right? It's very important, of course, to know that sales script well, but when you're on the phone, make sure you are in charge of speaking slowly. Let me pretend I'm going to say, hi Marcus, how's it going today? Or I'm going to say, hey Marcus, how's it going today? Slower, right? Could I go even slower than that? Hey Marcus, it's Rob here. How's it going today? Right? Slower, more controlled, shows you're more confident in yourself. And it's so easy to do. Just put, if you're taking the call from your computer, just put a little note, a little sticky note on your computer saying speak slower, right? And I think one of the final points that is so powerful in sales, if you see any good salesman, you will see that they're really a good salesman because they're actually sold on what they are selling, right? They truly believe in it, right? Imagine if you were selling a money-making scheme to everyone, right? That didn't work. How much confidence would you have when you are actually trying to sell it to them, right? You know for a fact it doesn't work. You probably won't be that confident. Now imagine you were selling something that is only $1 to someone and it cures cancer. It's like a $1 pill, right? And it cures cancer. Imagine you're trying to sell it to people who maybe are, know somebody who's got cancer. Imagine how confident you would be with that and how much conviction you would say. You would be trying whatever you could to get these people to buy because you knew it would help them. So you have to engineer this in your mind, right, for whatever you're selling. So have you got previous client reviews of your work? Have you got previous testimonials? Can you read these through before you actually go and do that sales call? Because I've tested this and you speak way more confidently when you truly believe in what you're trying to sell, right? And you can do this by looking at the genuinely good reviews that you've got. All right. So that is my 5 top tips on calming your nerves before you do a sales call. And remember, bonus tip for you here. Don't picture it as like you need to close every sale. Picture it like you're okay to make 100 mistakes and 100 screw-ups of the call because you're going to have an influx of other calls coming in the future. When you get away from that needy energy, you will absolutely be way better at what you're trying to do. Remember, always think in abundance rather than in scarcity. All right, take it easy, guys. See you later.